The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our today's webinar on Industry 4.0. My name is Rajesh Gawande. I'm the first secretary at the Embassy of India, and I head the economic and commercial section at the Embassy. We have today a panel of senior speakers who would be giving us a flavor of what the Indian manufacturing sector looks like when it comes to its Industry 4.0 readiness. We have speakers from EAC, we have a speaker from CII to give you an industry perspective, and we have a speaker from the Government of India, from the Department of Heavy Industry, to give you the government perspective. And then we have a partner from Roedl, who would talk about the intellectual property protection framework in India. Industry 4.0, as most of the participants would be known, is a very important focus area which was identified both by Prime Minister Modi and Chancellor Merkel when Chancellor Merkel had visited India for the 5th Intergovernmental Consultation in November 2019. We are working with the German government to make sure that there is greater cooperation in this area, and we understand that Industry 4.0 is something where the government has to sort of step back and let the private sector connect more. And this webinar is in that direction. So without any further ado, can I request the first speaker, Mr. Unmesh Lohite, to take over. And before Mr. Lohite begins, I would request all speakers to please stick to their time, to their allotted time, and so that we are fair to the other speakers who are below in the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gawande. So before handing over to Mr. Unmesh Lohite, I would like to just introduce Mr. Lohite. Unmesh Lohite is a principal at EAC, Privation Consulting, and heads the ICC Industrial and Operational Excellence Practice in EAC Mumbai office. Mr. Lohite is a mechanical engineer by qualification and also has an MBA in marketing, as well as he has completed SCM certificate course from IIT Mumbai. Mr. Lohite has overall 15 years of experience in the market strategy as well as operational excellence topics, including strategic consulting, localization, benchmarking, digitization, and Industry 4.0, as well as distribution. Over to you, Unmesh.
Thank you, Ketan. Thank you, Mr. Gawande, and good afternoon to all the panelists and presenters, Mr. Bharthi, Mr. Navalgundkar, and Mr. Dole, as well as to the dignitaries from Embassy, as well as to all the participants. It's a point to ponder if Industry 4 or I 4.0 it's called is still the future or already in present. We see initiatives across regions, some at advanced stage, some adopting, some early in the stage. Whatever it is, one thing is certain, it is a revolution. Today I'm honored to present on I 4.0, the future concept of manufacturing, and I wish to cover key aspects of I 4.0 from industry perspective. We have government dignitaries over here as well. So I will talk about Industry 4.0 in India, some success cases, as well as what are the readiness for Industry 4.0 requirements, how the transformation roadmap looks like, and lastly but not the leastly, how EAC can support in this regard. So industry revolutions were driven by innovations. In the past have been to increase productivity. We know about mechanization, mass production, and automated production. Industry 4.0 is about mass customization by deployment of cyber physical systems to build digitally interconnected ecosystem. India is still at the early stages of this particular adoption, wherein the Industry 4.0 concept in manufacturing is the usage of digital solution to enable intelligent real-time decision making in a connected ecosystem from back-end, like the raw materials to front-end and the customers, to attain improved productivity, agility, higher quality, transparency, and cost optimization. So India, let's say, is at the transition stage from being confined to a silo-based operation, confined to a single function or department, to a digitally interconnected real-time ecosystem. Now, how is the connectivity framework of Industry 4.0? So a traditional automation framework had hierarchical flow of data. You all know that, yeah? 4.0 framework has nodes that can communicate with each other and relay information to common platform for further a single version of truth, wherein this interconnected framework leverages data to enhance organizational capabilities across productivity, agility, transparency. So India is, talking about India, it's evolving from the hierarchical automation framework with respect to information systems. We have heard about an interconnected framework with major focus on data generation and data analytics. Yeah. Talking about the status of Industry 4.0, Industry 4.0 includes highlighting government manufacturing GDP targets for 2020, like IoT policies or Samarth Udyog 4.0. So though India is in initial stages of 4.0, it displays a strong commitment towards developing I 4.0 environment in India, wherein the current technology focus is on real-time analytics and transparency across production. And if we talk about industries, automotive and electronics are really the key industries adopting this I 4.0 technologies, wherein the focus which we see is more on production, inventory control, and monitoring. Talking about the challenges encountered in India, challenges for I 4.0 comprise both at adoption as well as during implementation. So adopting I 4.0 in India is characterized by lack of required infrastructure such as IT, security, skilled manpower. However, association with right transformation partners helps overcome challenges to initiate next level transformation journey. So here is where a right sort of technology partner and implementation partner can give an edge to organization going further. Yeah. Talking about the technology levers, when we talk about I 4.0, we are really talking about key technologies which comprise of batch processing, real-time processing, as well as auxiliary supporting technologies for this I 4.0. So what we understand is robotics and IIoT are really the major technologies adopted across industries currently, wherein automotive and electronics are really the flag bearers in this particular concept. Also, moving further, what we have also seen is the COVID impact, and this has really got the acceleration which it needed for Industry 4.0 adoption. So it has forced companies to adjust their strategies to survive in the new normal, and are now taking in-depth look at how this I 4.0 technologies like IIoT, robotic process automation, etc., could help them return to productive operations. Post-COVID plans to adapt or expand automation in the production line, including ancillary companies. Yeah, so wherein the ROI expected is anywhere from 5 to 10%. Going further, let's take a look at some of the cases or some adoption status in India. The IIoT or analytics and AI are the key technologies adopted. If we take examples of some key industries like glass, steel, and automotive, wherein key benefits include improved quality, efficiency, optimized cost, and value chain transparency. So typical benefits include increased forecast accuracy, on-time performance, reduction in industry levels, as well as transportation cost. So talking about the famous example of Tata Steel implemented Industry 4.0 over a period of, say, more than 4 years, wherein the initiatives was driven by targets to attain market competitiveness, increased productivity, and waste reduction. So technologies such as IoT, analytics, AI were used across maintenance, logistics, quality control, as well as waste reduction. And with dedicated efforts to overcome implementation challenges, Tata Steel has improved time to market by 50%, reduced machine downtime losses by 10%, as well as also not to talk about some qualitative factors of workforce safety and productivity. Yeah. Similar example is for an automotive manufacturer. One of the largest two-wheeler manufacturer deployed I 4.0 solutions across critical functions to again improve productivity, but here again supply chain predictability and again cost optimization. So IoT connectivity, cloud storage, and big data analytics based solution deployed in-house and with tier 1 suppliers across key functions with future plan to connect dealers on same platform to enable analytical recommendation based decision making. So we also have examples over here which are already talking about the decision making based on analytics. So to summarize on some of the examples what we have seen, the key success factors, what are some of the major factors is I 4.0 mandates multi-stakeholder collaboration through agile methodology, since it's a evolving space, for effective implementation based on 6 factors that define success and sustainability of the implementation roadmap. So what it comprises is like the C-level support, top management, transparency and responsibility, right technology selection, robust process integration, effective change management, and communication. Going further from the readiness for Industry 4.0, what are the elements of the transformation journey, say for an entity which looks to embark on this journey? The I 4.0 transformation journey key elements comprise data generation, communication, storage, and processing engines that helps make informed decisions to achieve organizational objectives, while other elements comprise analytics for decision making and target realization. Now, if we talk about the various transformation levels or readiness to go further, I 4.0 adopters can be classified across 5 levels based on implementation coverage achieved, wherein say level 0 is the starting or a preparatory phase, while level 4 is an advanced phase of implementation, and each level has its own timeline and digital team requirement varying from say a year to 5+ years based on the organization level, current I 4.0 level. So based on ESC research and know-how on I 4.0 adoption in India, auto industry and metal processing industries is taking major steps towards adopting at a single function level, while IIoT and cloud computing and analytics are the focus currently. Also, this has cost implication. As we all know, transformation cost comprises fixed, variable, and recurring cost blocks for hardware and software tool purchase, customization, and implementation. So the total cost of transformation is dependent on multiple factors that define the overall scope of hardware and software tool requirement for successful implementation. How would we define the transformation roadmap for Industry 4.0? So ESC has defined it in a 5-step model. So ESC's 5-step process for I 4.0 transformation journey outlines setting organizational goals, prioritize the key functions for digitization, check the readiness of the functions, develop the transformation concept, and implementation. So if I have to look at it from a more overview perspective, I 4.0 transformation roadmap has 3 distinct phases. The readiness check, from outlining the objectives, process prioritization, process and system check, to concept development stage, wherein we are defining the concept and data points and transformation functions and technology, and the implementation. So implementation is the final step in transformation roadmap and encompasses partner onboarding, successful pilot and phase-wise deployment of solution across prioritized process functions to realize results. So EAC can support in implementation or roadmap to its clients. Finally, what about EAC? EAC supports its client in I 4.0 transformation by acting as an interface between the client and technology partners. EAC defines scope as well as develops concept and implementation roadmap together with the client, while executes project management and monitoring role by adopting agile methodology, as well as supporting change management. EAC operational excellence practice offers integrated support across digital transformation journey through its internal practice and technology partner network, right from scope and process prioritization, status check, best fit solution recommendation by agile methodology, as well as implementation support. So we welcome you all in this journey of I 4.0 adoption, and we will be keen to support you in this particular regard. That's it from EAC. We are headquartered in Munich, Germany, and we have branch offices across Moscow, Mumbai, and Shanghai, India. Thank you so much for your patient listening.
Thank you, Unmesh. Now we are handing it over to Mr. Chandrashekhar Bharthi, our next speaker. So, Mr. Chandrashekhar, I have shared the screen with you. So, Mr. Chandrashekhar is a founder and managing director of AceMicromatic, MIT, India's first mover and leader in Industry 4.0 and IoT products, which have won prestigious awards including Siemens, CMTI, FIE, Economic Times, PC Quest, NASSCOM, and others. The company is part of AceMicromatic Group, India's largest manufacturer of CNC machines. An entrepreneur and technology visionary, he brings cutting-edge technology and throughout leadership from global leaders such as Commerce One, Merent, Norton, and other startups. Mr. Chandrasekhar's vision and leadership has helped to create several industry-first cutting-edge software which have been deployed in Fortune 500 companies such as GM, Ford, Toyota, Daimler, and SAP. Mr. Chandrasekhar has masters from State University of New York and Bachelor of Engineering from Bangalore. He served as a director of board at Indian Machine Tools Manufacturer Association, member of CII's Manufacturing Committee and CII's Smart Manufacturing Council. Over to you, Mr. Bharti.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to address all of you. Before I talk about the ecosystem in India and the drivers, I wanted to put that in context. And the context is primarily AceMicromatic is a large-scale supplier of CNC machine tools and automation technology. And as part of our portfolio, over 60% of our customers are the SMB customers. These are typically the tier 2s and below, and the other 40% of our customers make up the tier 1s and the large OEMs. So some of what I'm going to refer to you derives from the deep understanding that we have of the ecosystem in this space. So with that, what I'm going to address is 4 different aspects. One is, from an Industry 4 perspective, what do Indian manufacturers really want? What is happening currently? And as an insider who is both a technology provider and a consumer, what really are the factors that drive adoption and the technology curve itself? And the 4th aspect is, what can India and Germany do together on Industry 4.0? And part of that, I'm also going to address what we have been doing at CII in the Smart Manufacturing Council. So, see, as a background, in our group, we have product companies, each of which focus on a particular class of products. We have a customer-facing company that's spread across India as well as around the world. We also have a very strong ecosystem of component manufacturing companies, right from very large heavy machining to a large automated foundry to metal 3D and other focused areas. So a lot of the solutions that we develop and have tried to develop long before even it was called Industry 4.0 comes from the unmet needs or the significant advances that we have made at our own group companies. And as part of our group, we have more than 60,000 machines in the field and about 5,000 people. In India, our network is across more than 50 cities and now about 10 technology centers with a mean time to respond of 2 hours. So a lot of this is actually going to track back to the subsequent slides as I move forward. So as a background, when we started to offer what is currently being talked about as Industry 4 or IoT, we really started out with trying to help our customers become more productive. And this was way back in 2005 when we first automated the data collection from various kinds of machines and provide visibility into things that were actionable that would directly lead to increase in productivity and efficiency and profits. And the president of India at the time was so fascinated by what we were demonstrating at a trade show, he actually ended up spending almost 15 minutes with us and gave us a lot of pointers to how this could be of greater significance for India in the years to come. And what we started out at the time was really these 5 drivers, a lot of which still remain very relevant to not just India, but also what we are seeing for manufacturers around the world. Bottom line is, how do we increase efficiency, utilization, and the cost per part produced? And as part of this journey, we have experience of being able to do this across the large OEMs, tier ones, all the way to a whole host of SMEs whose needs are very diverse. So when we have built this technology, we have done it in a scalable way that can meet the needs of any size of company and for virtually any vertical. So today, when people are talking Industry 4, it is really the intersection of 3 axes. On one axis is the typical business processes within a company. It could be production, logistics, any of that. Crossed with smart initiatives or smart steps that can be taken to make it faster, better, cheaper. It could be decentralized decisioning, smart manufacturing, new business models, and so on and so forth. Now, what technologies do we need to use to enable those particular smart steps? So if you really look at it as the intersection of 3 different axes, each of these lead to several touch points that become the consumer end use or the use cases which actually result in increased productivity and efficiencies. Now, there was a recent study by McKinsey, a global study, which talked about what they saw from Fortune 500 or Global 1000 type companies as their perceived use cases for Industry 4.0. I want to draw your attention to what we see as the key for Indian ecosystem. The first is really increased utilization and optimization of production processes. The second is data-driven quality management. The third is perhaps remote monitoring. While the rest of them are still being incubated, these 3, I would say, from our experience in working with customers and the ecosystem, probably comprise 90% of the use cases of Industry 4.0 today in India, and perhaps for the next at least 3 to 5 years to come. So as we start to talk about what we can be doing together, I would draw your attention to these 3 focus areas where we can potentially start to ideate. And in the current ecosystem, there are multiple classes of players. One is, of course, the large automation majors. They are typically characterized by a large footprint and a company that has a significant commitment to front loading of time, cost, and potentially has gone through, like the speaker just before me, Mr. Lohite, talked about a roadmap. A large company that has gone through that roadmap might be able to take advantage of the offerings of the large automation majors who are very heavily front loaded. There's also a whole host of independent technology vendors. Some of them are the so-called IoT software startups, which tend to look at it more as I collect data from virtually any source, whether it's a machine or a light bulb, it doesn't really matter. And I provide agnostic tools to dashboard that data. So it is left to the end user to potentially use them and derive value out of those kind of offerings. The second category of technology vendors is typically the machine manufacturers, where there's a very heavy domain specific implementation or a flavor to the offerings. Now, some of them may scale well beyond that vertical, some of them may not. But this is another category that is of great significance to the ecosystem because it solves key pains fairly easily. The third is the these tend to be fairly local by geography and also tend to have a project focus. While they may seem to be very cost effective to start off, companies may find that as you start to move forward with additional use cases or maybe a longer term perspective, that could be a challenge. The other category is typically resellers or implementers of global software companies who may not have a design or development footprint in India, but they are largely focused on ensuring the successful implementation of already available software and tend to be technology specific. The last category of what we see is typically a company that believes it has a certain level of sophistication and scale and size may have a credible IT team or a credible Industry 4 champion team internally that tries to drive the Industry 4 efforts, where they may be less concerned about standardization or platforming, but more focused on what can we really get out of it in terms of solving key pain points expressed by their user departments. So what really defines the success of Industry 4 in India, especially at the SMB level, and now again with the whole COVID situation, a lot of large enterprises are also sort of getting back to the basics of what it means for them in terms of implementing Industry 4.0. So one is, we've seen that there's an increasing clarity on the effectiveness or utility of Industry 4.0, or colloquially being called IoT. However, a lot of companies perceive they may have a barrier to engage wholeheartedly because they're concerned about, can my company pull it off? I mean, they are over the curve in terms of, is this really useful? But it's really the question of, can I pull it off from a skills perspective, time perspective, commitment perspective, and then eventually after all this, what's the ROI I get from that? What's also being seen is that, especially in this SMB market, they seek comfort and a long-term engagement from their technology provider. Part of that involves the visibility of costing over time and also the stability of any further escalations. The next driver is still a lot of use case specific implementations are key to ensure that the faith and the learnings that companies may have derived from exposure to Industry 4 is sustained in terms of ROI, and they continue to add additional use cases so that they can start realizing additional ROI, and that becomes a multi-year effort. One of the challenges is, if you look at, let's say, a OEM or a tier 1 large supplier, they would ideally like their entire value chain to be Industry 4 compliant, whatever that means for a second. But there's a challenge that a one-size-fits-all may not work. And even if a large player subscribes to a platform, they may not be able to enable their lower tiers to directly adopt that platform in its entirety from the get-go. So there is a little bit of a bottoms-up approach that people seek to look at, which could be cost-effective, and then some things that sort of starts to plug into their regular working and then making that faster, better, cheaper before really looking at a transformation in terms of what Industry 4.0 can do to them. The last significant driver, I would say, is, colloquially called hand-holding. What really that means is, can you enable me to realize the potential of Industry 4 with not just the hardware or software that you supply, but the full spectrum footprint of what you can do for me in terms of the outcomes. And this is a very critical stage of evolution of a company, where we see that there's a huge opportunity for outcome-based models to bridge this gap and sort of lower the barrier for companies to start adopting Industry 4.0 in its entirety. Between India and Germany, there's been a lot of engagement at the government level. There's been a lot of engagement at the industry associations level. Now, there's probably less at a corporate level compared to the first two, but we believe that there's a great scope for corporate level engagement as well. So one is, how do we leverage the brand equity that German quality and technology brings into the Indian ecosystem? We believe that having a credible Indian partner for a German company would be useful to ensure the last mile issues and factors that drive adoption of Industry 4.0. In addition to that, greater outreach through academia and industry associations can foster open standard adoption, which is currently fairly low in India right now. There's a lot of very useful solutions, but not necessarily a standardization of what is considered to be open platforms or open source. There's also what we call the SAP factor. When people think about enterprise software of a nature that sort of cuts across their entire organization, one of the key players that comes to mind is SAP. Now, what it also means to them is there's a very heavy implementation duty cycle for that. Not mentioning cost. There's just a very really heavy duty cycle required to implement SAP and then derive benefit out of SAP. So we believe that German companies working with local partners to enhance the standardization across the value chain can enable quick ROI. India has scale. We believe that there is at least more than 250,000 high-value CNC machine tools in operation, and 5 to 10x of that number of other machines in operation. So there's a huge latent capacity to ensure the benefit of Industry 4 to the whole value chain. And here I see that there is also some interested partners on this forum who are probably financial in nature. We believe that if you were to become part of the funding ecosystem, this would help scale the adoption quicker and in turn also be of benefit to such partners. The last part is, we believe that German companies working closely with Indian companies can not just achieve the things that I talked about in the earlier few points, but also create and build technology which can be delivered to the world and supported very, very cost effectively. So these are the points of synergy that I see for German and Indian companies to collaborate together. And as part of enabling this, CII has been doing a lot of good work, and I'm proud to be associated with the CII Smart Manufacturing Council. And as part of that, we have built a CII Smart Manufacturing platform, which on one hand derives and constructs partnerships, on the other hand looks at the deliverables that can actually impact the end user community. For instance, these are the kind of partnerships that we have looked at both at a country level, at a government level, at the academia level. The deliverables are assessments, capacity buildings, skilling, the technical expertise itself, working with research bodies, and then business partnership events. So it's sort of a full spectrum that we are looking at. And to drive this, there's a website which my friends from CII will be able to share with you, where it has access to all of these that we talked about. So if you were to log on to this website, then you would have access to all of this, including use cases and case studies and where are the demo centers and so on. So this is a quick overview of what I wanted to share with you. And with that, I'd like to end.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bharti. Now we would like to hand it over the presentation to our next speaker, Mr. Navalgundkar. He is a director of Samarth Udyog Technology Forum and also member of Center for Industry 4.0 Lab under Department of Heavy Industries. Over to you, Mr. Navalgundkar.
Yeah, good afternoon. So, welcome all of you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I'm just going to quickly talk about, as a government and industry joint program, what we've done for Industry 4.0 in last couple of years. So as Mr. Chandrashekhar said, that this Make in India program, which so we have roots in Make in India program. Government opened up a initiative called Samarth Udyog. Samarth stands for Smart and Advanced Manufacturing and a Rapid Transformation Hub, and which nothing but all about Industry 4.0 or Smart Factory. So under this Smart Samarth Udyog, 4 centers got established across India. So in North, so these are the setups where the manufacturing is located in India, especially automotive and engineering. And the 4 centers are, one is in Delhi, 2 are in Bangalore, and 1 is in Pune. So I represent Pune center, which is in western part of India near Mumbai. So some of the activities that we all are doing are basically we create a platform for mid-sized companies to become competitive. We also are working to create an ecosystem for Industry 4 solution providers, and there is a tremendous work going on. Skills, as Mr. Chandrashekhar Bharti said in his talk also, that skills is something which is important and very highly focused on skill building. And so there are a lot of activities which we have done in last 2 years, and I'm going to share some of those charts. So our journey started sometime in 2018, and when government announced the 4 centers in October 2017, and we set up these 4 centers in January 2018. Just to begin with, we started an initiative called Knowledge Club. Knowledge Club is per se, there are expert talks from across the world. We brought some very senior experts coming in and talking to companies, and especially mid-sized companies, more to demystify what Industry 4 stands for. And this resulted in a lot of excitement among companies. We also launched a newsletter called Connect. Today, it goes out to different companies. About 5,000 is a number of people who receive quarterly this newsletter. Then we started something called a smart factory self-assessment launch. And this was based on various tools which we saw at Hanover and with interaction with some of the educational institutes in Germany. And some very simple tools we developed. These are more like a self-assessment tools. And very large factories as well as small factories, they have gone through this assessment. We also launched something called Industry 4.0 maturity model, and this is something like similar to CMA model in software industry, and it gives 5 levels of different organization, and it's been again done with a simple thing that companies can do it on themselves. We as a facilitator, we can create help them to understand this. We also, as a part of skill program, there was a need to do awareness sessions across the country. And so we developed a program called Are You Ready for Transformation? Industry 4 per se, there are 2 aspects. One is a manufacturing operations and another is a technology immersion. And this is the time when we can get both at a particular speed. And so we developed a program called Are You Ready? Till date, about 500 plus companies in last 1.5 years have gone through these sessions, and about 1,000 plus participants have attended these sessions. And they are very engaging sessions, and a lot of excellent feedback is coming up. We also run a program called Digital Champions Program, and which also is a very sought after program, and it's been done quite extensively. We do a lot of cluster meets. The way there are clusters in Europe, we have automotive and engineering clusters. So we call it local foundry cluster or machining cluster, and based on locations, there are programs that we do. We have been on a very regular basis organizing these cluster meets at different locations. India is a vast country, and you need a different treatment for each area, and so that's what we are doing. Now everything is okay as long as it's on training and skill building, but ultimately you need to see something with your own eyes. With that purpose, we created something called Demo Center, and a Demo Center is like a demonstration lab. A lot of ideation has happened, and we've gone through a very detailed process, and a lot of visitors have come in. Almost like 2,000 visitors have been here from industry, from academia, from international guests. Right from Europe and US, there have been a lot of companies who have come down to see our demo center. On a similar thing, on a demo center, we are creating an experience center, which is going to be India's unique experience center in a university campus in India. So at the same time, for mid-sized companies to get a confidence about Industry 4, you need to actually do some pilot projects. And we actually conceived some of the ideas and worked with few companies in India to get a feel of that pilot, explain to them what are different technologies are available, and they are important. Some of the very basic level activities are there. We also, while doing such pilots, we had to go through a lot of value chain kind of a work, and we have a team which we do it along with the companies. As said earlier in the speakers, we have developed some very excellent modules for different industry verticals like plastic component manufacturing or foundry or forging or machining, and each domain needs to have a different kind of a treatment. So we collected a lot of data over last 1 year and developed very few dedicated solutions which are on these lines. So some of the case studies are, these are very large factories, or some of them are very, and as said earlier, the real-time OE was something which is we felt that it could begin with. So that's one area where we work very extensively. Again, another example of a pop manufacturing company from western part of India. Again, here there is a OE as well as a Kanban for quantities. This is a case study where visual inspection of errors on battery terminals. Again, a very vision-based defect testing and brought quality down, brought defects down substantially. Something on an automotive multinational compressor company. They're looking at genealogy of or a traceability of product, and we up to a particular level, that batch can be traced back to the raw material. So these are some of the quick successes over last 6 months to 8 months we've done. A lot of excitement we could create among the mid-sized companies about Industry 4. At the same time, there is a need to establish a skill center. So there is an entity in India which is called Center for Development of Computational Analytics. So along with that, we are setting up a skill development center in Pune city, and a lot of online programs we are going to start with them. And at some of the engineering institutes or universities, we are creating demo labs, which will, so 2 are already established, and these demo labs are being established so that the faculty and students can learn. And we have developed some equipments which can be put out in those demo labs. At the same time, local industry can go and visit those demo centers. See, every time, as I said earlier, India is a very large country. Every time a person from North India need not visit all the way to western part of India, he can locally go and see the university or engineering college. So with that in mind, we created a academia facilitation program. So it's a both industry as well as academia jointly work is being done. So, and these are some of the offerings, or these are some of the things which we do. We support industry as well as we support educational institutes in terms of certification and academia program. So that's all from my side. It was a pleasure talking to you. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to take it later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Navalgundkar. Now we are transferring the presentation to our next speaker, Mr. Soumitra Dole from Roedl Partner. So Mr. Dole is a lawyer and senior associate at Pune office of Roedl Partner. He has been working with Roedl Partner since 2018. He has over 9 years of experience in dealing in corporate laws. He has extensive experience in implementation and management of Indian due diligence and M&A projects of multinational companies. Mr. Dole, over to you.
Thank you, Ketan, for the brief introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. So, as the industry speakers explained that the 4.0 project of Indian government and Make in India project, wherein Indian government is looking at more industries to come and set up in India and to have move towards automation. So that brings a major part of invention which will be coming along with the automation. With that, with this being an age of sustainable innovation, fierce competition, strategic growth, which is marked by differentiation and intellectual differentiation. So the intellectual property plays a dominant role, right from the germination of an idea to its scalability, implementation, and expansion. So the intellectual property per se in India is divided in different types. So I'll just go to the types of intellectual property which are there in India. So namely the patents, trademarks, copyrights, and designs. These are the main intellectual property rights in India. Apart from that, you have geographical indications as well. So, like, I'll just briefly give introduction or topic about what is patent and what is copyright. So, patent is regarding getting special rights for your innovation. So for patent, whatever you're going to get patent for has to be an innovation. So under India, the patents are governed by the Patents Act, whose regulatory authority is under the Controller General of Patents, Designs and Trademarks. You will get patent for 20 years. After that, the patent is no longer in existence. And your patent is subject to priority filing principles. So whoever files the application first, he will be granted a patent in India. Now to trademarks. So trademark is like your brand or your identity. So it is very necessary that one must register their mark in India in order to establish their identity. So the trademark again is governed by the Trademarks Act and the trademark rules. And the regulatory authority is again the Controller General of Patents, Designs and Trademarks. Again, here the principle of first come first serve is in. I mean, you have to file it as soon as possible before your competitor files it. Then comes your copyright. Then copyright is applicable for certain products like or publications such as books, songs, films, web content, artistic work. And then finally comes your designs. Under designs, you protect your designs such as drawings or computer models or other designs. So all again, this has been regulated by the Designs Act and Designs Rules, and your design gets protection maximum for a period of 10 years, which is again be renewed for further period of 5 years. So in total, the designs can be protected for a period of 15 years. Apart now in this age of international collaborations and access and proliferation of world markets, it is very essential that your IP is secured worldwide, your intellectual property is secured worldwide. So that is why you have international treaties wherein the member countries have preference for intellectual properties which has been registered in other member countries. So India, next slide please. So India is signatory to such treaties. So it is a signatory to the World Trade Organization since 1995. Then India is a signatory to the Paris Convention, wherein a person from a signatory state can apply for a patent or trademark in any other signatory state, and he will be given the same enforcement right and status as national of that country would be. So, for example, if his application will be taken on priority. So, for example, a patent or trademark is registered in Germany, and if that company has to register their patent or trademark in India, then under Paris Convention they will be given a priority, and their application will be processed much faster. For like there is a Berne Convention wherein it is for copyrights, the Madrid Protocol is again for filing of trademarks and the Patent Cooperation Treaty. Unfortunately, India is still not a signatory to the Hague Agreement, which allows the protection of design rights for the member states. So this gives the impression that even now Indian nationals who are having patents or trademarks in India can file their patents or trademarks outside India using these treaties. Having now said the types of trademark and the treaties to which India is a party, we will now move to the protection of trademarks. Trademark or protection of intellectual property rights, because intellectual property is becoming the face of the company or the identity of the company. So it is very essential to protect the intellectual property right the company owns. Few of the things which can be done while doing or to protect your intellectual property, they are like, can you go on the next slide, please? Yes. So in India, intellectual properties registration is a domestic registration. So though India is a signatory to the various international treaties, one must register their intellectual property in India in order to protect them. If, for example, if the trademark is registered in Germany, but if it is not registered in India, and if similar trademark is registered by an Indian party, then there will be a conflict. And because of the because of the principle of first come first serve, the person who files letter may lose the protection. So this is very important, and this is one of the strategies. In my opinion, one should adopt that if you want to register your IP in India, then one must first take a expert opinion whether such IP is available in India and whether you can register such IP, whether there is similar IP being registered. So it is very necessary to have thorough research done before going for a IP protection in India. The second point is maybe it might happen that you may not be able to get IP protection in India, but may still want to use certain processes or certain marks in India, or if you are not able to register them in India, or if it is not registered and still you want to go ahead with its use in India, then such use or by the other party must be protected by way of watertight agreements, which includes a technology collaboration agreement or a trademark license agreement, wherein such agreements will govern the terms of use of intellectual property as well as the clauses for infringement of IP rights of the owner of such IP. Then your IPs are usually used by your employees in day-to-day business. So like your brand, your trademark, or your logos, maybe your patented technology for the day-to-day business of the company. So while hiring employees, their employment contracts should have an effective IP-related clauses, which will bind them not to share them with anyone or to disclose it to anyone, and which include harsher punishments if they and they submit it or share with someone else. It is also recommended that workshops should be conducted to educate employees on IP rights and protection. Then you can always have a sound or effective methods for destruction of documents or drawings or tooling samples, whichever are protected, in order not to get in the hands of the competitors of the companies. The last one is you should do a periodic assessment of claims of protection sought by other parties on the intellectual property, which are similar to a company's intellectual property rights. So, for example, the trademark registry publishes a journal wherein they publish the marks which have been approved by the trademark ministry. However, such marks are open for public objection. So if a company thinks that the logo is a logo which has been applied by some other party is similar to their logo and which may create a confusion in the minds of people, then that company whose logo is already registered can object the registration of the other mark, and if they are able to convince the trademark registry, then registration of the other mark can be cancelled. So it is very essential that periodic assessment the IPs which are similar to the IPs of the company must be done in order to check that if there is any similar marks or similar patents been applied for. The next is enforcement of your rights. So under Indian law system, there are civil courts and criminal courts which have been granted authority to proceed the matters for infringement of IP laws. This has been the Indian IP laws provide for civil as well as criminal proceedings, and also there are restrictions under the Competition Act. Whether a mediation or negotiation procedure is also given under Civil Procedure Code, which is like an out-of-court settlement for two parties. But right now, the enforcement, I would say, is in very rudimentary level because of the challenges faced and the structure of the enforcement which is there, because many of the authorities are not well equipped with the laws or ideas or thought process before it. So the challenges currently are faced in the enforcement. So I think it is very essential for a company who is setting up their business in India to see what are their intellectual property rights and which rights they want to register, and or which rights or which intellectual property rights are available to them to register, and are there any similar rights which has already been registered. So this is very essential strategy, because if you start your manufacturing and if you come up with a product with certain name, and if you cannot register that name as your trademark, or someone objects to that name because it was already been registered as a trademark, then that company loses a lot. So it is very essential and very necessary that one must take a expert opinion and must do a thorough research before registering their rights, or even before giving a thought of idea that you should come up with something like this before actually implementing. So that's it from my side. Thank you everyone for your patient listening, and together, go together.
Thank you, Mr. Dole. Ladies and gentlemen, now we open our forum for Q&A session. If you have any questions, please click on raised hand icon and we can unmute you to take your question. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any question, please click on raised hand icon and then we can take up your question. Okay, I don't see any questions coming in. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending today's webinar, and I really thank all our honorable speakers for presenting the insights on Industry 4.0. In case you have any questions, ladies and gentlemen, you can, and also if you want to know more about Make in India Middlestand program, you can write us to MIIM@indianembassy.de. That's our email ID. And also if you have any queries on the presentations today, you can also write it to our speakers. I see one question coming in from Mr. Jay Soni, so we can take that question. I'll just unmute Mr. Jay Soni. Yes, Mr. Soni, I have unmuted you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So my question is, we are discussing about Make in India. So do we have some plans to integrate this to manufacture this IoT sensors at cost-effective manner in India? Because this will really give a good boost to all I 4.0 practices if we start manufacturing these sensors in India. So can you give some insight about it?
Yes, sure. Mr. Bharthi or Mr. Navalgundkar, would you like to answer this question?
From an industry perspective, Mr. Soni, the question you raise is a relevant one. There are sensor manufacturers in India right now, and if you're talking about a whole full spectrum of sensor manufacturing, that is something that I believe the government of India is looking to focus on and provide a boost by way of electronics manufacturing. So as electronics manufacturing starts to take off in India, part of that would also be in sensor manufacturing. So there is hope that in the years to come, we could probably see some of that happening in far greater scale than where it is today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soni. Thank you, Mr. Bharti. Any other question, audience? Okay. Thank you very much. As I mentioned, if you have any queries, you can write us to MIIM@indianembassy.de, and also you will receive all the presentations shared today after this webinar. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.